Before we get into this video, I just wanted to give a shout out to the author of this story. I'm going to put the name on screen right now, hopefully, if my editing software works. I included it in the description of the first part of this video, but this is a fictional series. I saw a lot of comments of people that were wishy-washy. Figured that was my bad for not being more clear. This is a series. Now, that's not to be said that a lot of shit like this hasn't gone on, because I think everyone knows that it has, sadly. But I figured for clarification I would just put that out there so people aren't confused. There will be more segments to this as well, so put on your notifications if you want to stay up to date. Or don't. Guess it's up to you. Let's get into the video. It was June 5th, 1974. A rainy summer day by all accounts. Or it seemed that way. Me and your aunt had just renewed our vows and fallen deeply in love again. It was a renewing of our faith in God that helped us come together. We both joined a local church and felt great about life. Things were going so well for us. We had just bought a 3-bedroom house with enough room for both of our kids. The US wasn't doing so well. In response to the energy crisis, a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit had been imposed, and daylight savings was extended. Global recession was causing an uprising in patients at the asylum, people wanting to get rid of their children or people collapsing under the pressure of the world. Me and your aunt were doing well. The kids were in school, so your aunt got a part-time job working at a library, making a good wage. The two incomes were keeping us very well off in the dark time. But I always felt in darkness at the asylum, especially that year. In 1974, the head doctor of the autism unit made an announcement that he believed diet was the proper way to respond to autism. He felt that what the kids ate made them antisocial and stunned them developmentally. He began to do what he called a test treatment. It was more of a human experiment. He told me that some kids would eat all veggies, some would eat all meat, some kids would have no limit, and one would have only water. A child named Ashley. Each child was given a pill. According to the doctor, it had some sort of medicine that was supposed to give each child exactly what they needed for nutrients. A vitamin, basically. Something was sketchy on all accounts with it. I didn't like it at all, but I had my orders and it was only supposed to last a week. 2.5 weeks later, I was seeing no changes, except in weight. It wasn't my job to do anything but cook, but the autistic kids were my kids. I loved them. They were different and picked on for no reason. So what if they didn't talk much? They were brilliant. The doctor described them as unfeeling, childish, recluses. The one who they starved, Ashley, in 2.5 weeks was almost skin and bones. Her beautiful blue eyes always captivated me. For the last 2 weeks, I couldn't look at her. She cooked in class and grew weaker and weaker until she stopped feeling it all. She would sit in the corner unresponsive to the nurse's commands to go. One day they asked me if I wanted her in class anymore due to her behavior. That's when it hit me. I just want to interject here. At this point, my uncle literally broke down. He felt so guilty he hadn't done something sooner. This really affected him, and we had to stop for a bit to get a glass of water to begin again. I marched over into the doctor's office and told him he needed to stop the experiment. He looked at me odd. "What experiment, Bill?" I looked at him with a dirty look and leaned in on his table. I was furious. "You know damn well what I mean. Your goddamn treatment is killing those kids." I was shaking with rage and he could tell. "Have you noticed the changes in them?" "I have. They're improving. I saw one the other day interacting with one of the other kids." My fists clenched. I thought right there and then I could have snapped his neck. I felt the insanity that many of the patients felt, but I stopped myself. Killing him wouldn't cure the kids. He had no understanding of what autism was like. I did. He may have read 1,000 books on the subject, but I saw them every day. I ran out and looked for Ashley. I found her in her room. I looked around to see if any nurses were around to stop me. None. Then I opened the door and took her by the hand, telling her we were going on a little adventure. I stopped and smiled at her. She was only 13, and she looked at me with those eyes so helpless. "Ashley, we are going to help you, okay? There will be yelling, but you and I both know you need help right now, okay?" I explained to her best I could, and she nodded slowly. My heart broke, but I had no time for tears. I pulled her with me all the way to the doctor's office. He stared at me. "What now?" he demanded, seeing me. I pulled Ashley in front of me. I held her bony arm up and yelled, "Is this what you call treatment?" Ashley began to cry. She choked a bit, tears rolling down her face. "Oh look, emotion. I guess it's working, doctor. Won't be working for long though, because if she doesn't get food, she's going to fucking die." I slammed my hands on the table and looked at him square in the eyes. His eyes were so wide I thought he was going to fire me right then and there. I didn't care though. Ashley's life was important. The doctor began to stutter. Now Bill, the experiment is going to be over tonight. Tomorrow we will return the kids to their normal diet." I looked at him and leaned in close. "Feed her now," I said between clenched teeth. I'm sure my face was red. Nurses broke in at this time, seeing what was going on and seeing Ashley crying. They went in to console her. They thought I was saying to take her out of my class. The doctor held up his hand and relented. Fine. Nurses, get a cup of chicken broth." I felt better and said, "Thank you," holding my hands up, and then left the room. I was promptly taken into the head doctor's office and told not to mess with the patients. I told him Ashley was an exception, and if I ever saw a patient that was withering away and dying, I would help them if I could. The head doctor agreed that in this case it could be forgiven, but to be careful how I intervene. For Ashley, however, it was too late. She never recovered, mostly because they never gave her what she needed. She died a week after the treatment ended for her. The doctor looking over her was never charged for her death, never even reprimanded. They put her body in the morgue. Her family had abandoned her, so I told the mortician I would purchase a spot for her in a graveyard. I had a small ceremony with a few of the nurses and my colleagues who cared like I did. I don't think I ever sobbed so much over a patient. Ashley was a beautiful little girl. She never deserved this. She had so much hope. She was doing so well before. She would smile and laugh during class. She was interacting with others she trusted. Her anxiety was down since she came in. She learned to live in the big world alongside her autism. I told the head doctor that I should be consulted about students' well-being, as I spent every day with them. I told them the nurses should too. They didn't listen. Food treatments were regulated. You could not starve a patient, and a nutritionist was put on staff that needed to be checked before treatments to see if they could withstand the treatment. I will never forget Ashley. Autistic kids can be misunderstood. They need love and compassion. Just because they're silent doesn't mean they don't feel. When they know you, they open up, and you could help them through tough situations. She should have been in a loving family, gone to school and grown up to be a successful person. Sure, some can't speak, but they still feel as well as you or I. I've told you a lot about men in my stories. I'll tell you a story about a woman. I'm not sure what she had for an issue, but this event scared me. I was leaving for the day when I heard a huge commotion. There are times you know it's just someone having an outburst, and there are other times where you know there is something seriously wrong. I rushed over to see what it was. A woman screaming in a corner surrounded by 10 people, some nurses, some doctors, all of them keeping their distance because the woman had a knife. Get back from my baby." She held the knife in her hand, pointing it all around her. Her voice sounded deep like a man. "Oh God, it's coming. Get a nurse." The knife went down and she put her hands on her stomach. This time the voice was almost sweet. The nurses tried closing in, but the man voice came back and the knife went up. "You motherfuckers come any closer and I'll gut all of you." The sweet voice came back. "It won't come out. It won't come out. I need help." The knife turned to her stomach and she slid it in. Moving it in a horizontal line, she bled through her dress immediately. For a few seconds she screamed but began pulling her intestines out. Then she yelled, "Where's my baby?" A scream like I had never heard come out of her. Then she passed out, slamming her head on the floor, making a sickening thunk. I had seen a lot by this time in 1979, but this gripped my stomach like a vice. I ran to a nearby trash can we kept in the halls and threw up. The nurses and doctors got a gurney and put her on it, rushing her away. One of the doctors passed by me and asked if I was all right. I shook my head no. "What the fuck was that?" I said, tears coming out of my eyes. I'm not sure if it was from me vomiting or from what I just saw. The doctor looked down at his own hands. "I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm okay either." I wasn't sure why he was looking at his hands. "What did you do?" I thought maybe it was guilt that caused him to look down. I don't know why he told me, but he did. "LSD. I thought if she saw people in her vision, she could fight them away. I thought it was subconscious, that she could be cured. Oh God, what have I done?" I wasn't sure what to do at this point, so I walked away. I think oftentimes these doctors don't know what it's like to be out of their office. They do treatments, but they never really see the results as they happen. I'm not sure what happened to this girl. She wasn't in my class, and I wasn't about to go find out either. The doctor, though, went home and that week he hung himself. I'm not sure if he had other things tormenting him in his life, but maybe nothing he did was working and he finally felt the pressure of failure. Nothing was more telling than watching a woman gut herself alive, and it was all because of you. But I begin to wonder how she got the knife. I knew there was more to the story, but I couldn't investigate it. I needed to be on my best behavior. I attended the doctor's service. The priest reminded us that mental illness affects everyone, not just those who are in the hospital, but those who are helping others in the hospital. I wanted to get up and preach from the pulpit about what was really going on, how the doctor wasn't treating the girl, and how he thought LSD was going to cure someone. I shook my head, biting my tongue. Who gives LSD to a mental patient? I kept having nightmares of the girl, cutting herself open, pulling it all out. It was a reoccurring dream that I just couldn't get out of my mind. I had to visit the pastor and have him pray for me 5 times before I finally got it out of my mind. I just don't understand what the doctor was thinking. After that day, I began hating that place. Not just the patients, but being there. The head doctor, who had been my friend in college, and was how I got the job, was going to be leaving. My head was on the chopping block as far as a job was concerned, and I couldn't just intervene for the patients anymore. I wanted out, but I wasn't sure where I would go. I had been here for over 15 years. Where could I go? I wasn't ready to retire. I knew it was useless trying to quit, so I stuck with it for at least another few years. Author's note. Before I start this, I just want to mention this is more of a ghost story than anything. My uncle tells great stories, so I'm not sure if this one is real or if he's just telling a ghost story. But I asked him to tell me some stories that aren't about active patients, but still scary, and this was one of the ones he told me. I really did enjoy this story, so I hope you all enjoy it as well. Some people express that they like stories when they are about the morals of the asylum, and paranormal seem to cut that out. While I totally understand that, I think sometimes it's okay to get a little weird and tell a story that's a bit different. On the night of June 29th, 1967, I decided to work a little late in the kitchen cleaning up some of the hard-to-reach areas, just to do some extra stuff. I wanted to start off saving for Christmas, and I figured a little overtime would be a good way to get it done. I began seeing things, hearing footsteps and even whispers. I thought nothing of it. It was a large room, so I figured noises reverberate, and who knows what might bleed through the walls. What really tipped me off something weird was happening was when I heard the sink dripping. I thought that was odd, so I walked over to see if it was the gasket needing replacing. When I got there, I noticed there was no dripping and the sound stopped. My blood went cold at that point. My heart rate went straight up and I started freaking out a bit. I heard a whisper, then a little giggle. "Hello?" I shouted. Maybe one of the patients had gotten out of their rooms, I thought at first. I started looking around. I heard a giggle under a table. I swallowed hard, terrified to look under the table. I wasn't sure what I would find. How would someone have gotten out of their room this late at night without someone noticing by now? I closed my eyes and began to slowly squat down on the ground. I opened my eyes and saw what looked like a 12-year-old girl with sunken-in eyes. She was in a dress, and her face was severely burned. I fell back and screamed when I looked again and saw that she was gone. I figured she had run off and I ran to the phone to pick it up. To no tone. Then the pots and pans started to rattle. At first quietly, then loudly. I covered my ears tightly and tried to think what to do. I had to leave. I just had to. But first I had to make sure everything was locked. But I couldn't. I grabbed my keys and ran out, running to the nearest nurse. "There's a girl in the kitchen!" I screamed, frightened. She ran back with me to the room and opened the door to silence. We searched and couldn't find her. Then the nurse looked at me and got pale. "What?" I said, getting unnerved by her look. "You saw Katrina." I looked around the room, still unsure of what was going on. Who the hell is Katrina? Back in 1929, this kitchen was the morgue. Katrina was a girl who we are told was burned in the incinerator alive. She was playing dead and the nurses believed her, and so they placed her in the incinerator. She thought it was a great game, until it started burning her alive. She screamed so loudly, but there was nothing anyone could do. My mouth went dry and I started feeling sick. Her face! I gasped, touching my own. How could that be true? How could they know she was dead? "That's not true. Didn't they check her vitals?" The nurse sat on one of the chairs and then laughed. "It's just a ghost story, Bill. But I've seen her too." She sighed. "Something happened to that little girl. I don't believe they just tossed her in the oven and closed the door. But something happened." I began closing everything up and locking it. Then the nurse and I left and went into the hall. I said goodnight and left. Something terrified me all the way home. I could not stop looking in my back seat. I felt like she was somehow watching, somehow there. That night I dreamt of her. It was a room full of fire. She was standing right there walking through it all. "They didn't think I was dead, Bill," she chuckled. "They just wanted to get rid of me." She giggled loudly. I saw a door open, fire burning bright. I saw the little girl Katrina being held by several doctors. As they tossed her in the fire, she screamed, trying to fight them. I started crying and tried to help her, but my hands went through her body. After she stopped screaming, I heard from behind, "Why, you ask?" I turned around to see her ghost again. "The doctors liked to toy with me and I turned out to be pregnant. There's only one thing to do then. Kill." I started feeling like I was burning, my whole body feeling hot and sweaty. I saw myself on fire, but then woke up. I was sweaty and my stomach was in knots. Your aunt had shaken me awake, telling me I was tossing and turning, saying Katrina over and over. I told her what happened and then got something to drink. I wasn't sure what to do. I went back to sleep and never had a dream again, or saw Katrina. I wondered if she just needed someone to listen to her. Maybe it might be crazy, but I think she was real. Or her story was real. I talked with the head doctor, my friend, about what it was like before I came on. He mentioned it was like it had always been. Since he was only there for 3 years before me, I don't know if he knew if the rumors were true. I'm telling you, Vincent, call me crazy, but I believe Katrina. I could never confirm it, but I could feel it in my bones. If you enjoyed this video, do your thing. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. And if you would like to help support the channel, make sure you go check out my Patreon page. It's a cool way for you guys to get perks as well as help support the channel. I don't remember if there was something else I was wanting to say. I think there was, but I forget, so catch you all later. Have a good day, night, morning, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're at. And I'll catch you in the next one.